Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Navavimas podcast. Namaste, Bijeet. Jai Shri Ram, Vande
Namaste.
Mataram.
Vande Mataram.
Okay, so today we have an English broadcast today. So today is a very special day for us Indians. Today is the 16th December. So every 16th December, the Indian people celebrate VijayDiwas. In 1971, 16th December, the Pakistani army had surrendered to the Indian troops and which created the independent nation of Bangladesh. So today we are going to talk about the historical context of the 1971 war and the independence and creation of Bangladesh and few incidents which were prior to 1971. So as you can see, I have the book with us. So we are going to talk about 1971 war prior and after the war, what happened really. So today we have Mr. Bijeet Pasanta, the author of the book. So he will be reading us, he will be giving us insights into what really happened. So a lot of us who are born in 1980s or 1990s do not remember what really happened in 1971, what led to the creation of Bangladesh. So today, with the help of Mr. Vijit and his book, we're going to find out what really happened and how it happened. So, Vijit, over to you.
Thank you. Um, right. So I think we have already done two episodes before this, where starting from the Noakhali genocide, and the our great Calcutta killings. Right. We have already discussed those things. I'm getting an echo. I'm not sure.
Let me just.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think this is fine now. Yeah, so we were already discussing. So we already had like I think a couple of episodes on the history of this whole generational sort of hatya, right, in Bangladesh since 1940s, and this is probably our third episode. So in this regard, but this because this is 16th of December and this day has is of huge consequence, right? Of huge significance as well. Um, so that's why we thought ki this is an apt time to sort of discuss the Operation Searchlight, some things, the unfortunate events that happened around 1971, and eventually the all the sort of massacres that led to the war between India and Pakistan and created the independent country in the name of Bangladesh. So we already discussed basically when the Pakistan was created, there were really two Pakistans, right? East and West Pakistan. And before 1971, Bangladesh used to be called East Pakistan. And we already discussed ki the in terms of the population percentage, right? Around 25% of the overall population of Pakistan were non-Muslims. So the army generals of the West Pakistan, they were having the plan to kill the non-Muslims, drive out a few, and convert the rest. So that was their well declared plan of how to manage the non-Muslim populations in Bangladesh. Why? Because they were thinking that if Hindus are in, even if Hindus are in minority, around 20%, they are going to affect all the sort of national policies, so that it will be sort of Hindus will make the iron fist on top of a velvet glove of Islamic Ummah, right? And they also said that okay, because Hindus are much educated on average than Muslims, that's why they are going to take up all the sort of top positions in the administration and judiciary, and they will have sort of a soft power which will sort of save them from getting extinct within East Pakistan. And so they started this generational sort of massacres, sporadic violence to sort of kill the Hindu populations in Bangladesh. There were many incidents even after this 1949, 1950, even after Nehru Liaquat Pact in March 1950, I guess. There were the most significant of all those sort of massacres were Kalshira massacres, we have already discussed, where sort of the Bangladeshi radicals got the assistance of the police and administration to sort of perpetrate massacres and then whitewash it. So, because this whole sort of Hindu massacre in Bangladesh got the assistance of the administration, it really, we can call it, by the definition of United Nations, we can call it genocide. So, Kalsira massacre gave it a formal official stamp कि Hindus can be sort of killed with the assistance of the administration. The next big event that happened was in 1964, I guess, yeah, because there was this, it is called the Hazrat Bal incident. So, there is a mosque in Kashmir, our Indian Kashmir. I mean, the whole Kashmir is Indian Kashmir, but right now, the Indian administered Kashmir, Indian side of Kashmir, whatever you say it. So there is a mosque in Srinagar. It's called Hazrat Bal Mosque. It is believed that the one hair of the Prophet is basically being sort of kept there inside that mosque. Now, around 1964, rumors spread that that hair of the Prophet has been lost, right? And just from this sort of news or rumor, the whole sort of Bangladesh got enraged, and that led to a huge large scale massacre of Hindus. So that was one important event around 1964. And then because of different reason, in the meantime, the Pakistani side of I mean the West Pakistan basically, which had the army pretty much to control both the Pakistan, they tried to sort of impose Urdu as the national language even in Bangladesh, to sort of Islamize the Bangladesh, because according to them, Bengali people, because they were black, quote unquote, and weak, right? And Bengali was such a feminine language, quote unquote. That's why the East Pakistan Muslims were not Muslim enough. So it was the sort of national level policy of the administration, as well as the Pakistani army, which basically were the same, to sort of impose Urdu, to sort of masculinize the Bangladeshi population. Okay, but it is this sort of things which were creating these large sort of hurdles, and were basically making it more difficult for the West Pakistan to rule the East Pakistan, right? Because East Pakistan, although there were large scale massacres going on Hindus, the whole population on average were not ready to accept Urdu as the national language. So there were too many faults line that was there in Bangladesh that were at play, and it is really the events that happened, I think, from the spring of 1970 that gradually led to this whole Operation Searchlight, the sort of Holocaust kind of event in Bangladesh, specifically on the secular Muslims and Hindus, and eventually led to this India-Pakistan war and the creation of Bangladesh. Okay, so now I am going to start the whole sort of consequence of events that led to the 16th of December in 1971. So by
Vijay,
this,
Vijay, my audio is okay now? Is it better?
yes, yeah,
My audio is fine now?
yeah,
Okay. So actually, I have created the presentation as we had discussed. So the first one, the point A is mentioned. So you will say I will go to the presentation two when you spoke of the point B.
right, right. So the first point was the national,
1970s
right,
elections.
right. Okay, so by the spring of 1970, basically. the Bengalis of East Pakistan, they were pretty much convinced with this political sort of bargaining and everything that they will achieve the autonomy within the Union of Pakistan. And it would start to sort of, I mean, the West Pakistan will give them their own military and financial institutions. I'm again getting an echo. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. So they will East Pakistan will start to get their own military and financial institutions, right? And although being a separate sort of, I mean, within the Union of Pakistan, East and West Pakistan will have their own financial institutions as well as their own military, right? This was despite the fact that the Bangladeshi rupee were financially sort of weak. Okay. Anyway, that's another story. We can discuss the economic side later. But so then the relationship between the two chunks of Pakistan, they were, because of this sort of bargaining, were getting increasingly complicated. And then meanwhile in the West Pakistan, I mean, that land chose the military dictatorship. Okay. And on top of this, so basically there was no democracy around that time in Pakistan. Moreover, there was a heavy monsoon in August 1970, and there was a cyclone in November 1970. And because of these two natural catastrophe, around 1 million people, 1 million Bangladeshi died. Um, and this sort of catastrophe did not catch the attention of Islamabad, the sort of capital of Pakistan. The president at that time was Yahya Khan, who was also holding some army positions. I think he was army general or something. Um, because it was again, there was this military dictatorship in Pakistan. So he at that time he went to China. Okay, around that time. And then when he was so people in Bangladesh were expecting ki from his visit to China, he will come back. He will come to East Pakistan and stay for a few days, right? Because Bangladesh is going through such a crisis. But Yahya Khan, this guy was a ardent Bangladeshi hater basically, and he used to call ki Bangladeshis are short, thin, dark, and small. Okay, and then what, because he used to hate Bangladesh, he did not again, so he went to this Beijing or Peking. Peking is another name of Beijing. um, and then after that what he did was he made a small detour to Bangladesh on his way back from China to Pakistan. And basically he visited from his basically aircraft from 3 or 4 thousand feet above. Okay, he did not land in Bangladesh, did not talk to the local leader or the local populace about the distress that Bangladesh went through. Anyway, so East Pakistan, after due to this sort of casual attitude of the West Pakistan, the East Pakistanis were very sort of enraged, but they chose ki they have one way to avenge this thing, because the election was coming on 7th and it was due on 7th of December. And in Bangladesh, well, in Pakistan, there were mainly two political parties. One was this Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's Awami League, and then there was this Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's People's Party. Okay, so these were the two main parties that were fighting election in Pakistan and specifically in East Pakistan. And so what happened? The West Pakistan military was expecting, because this Zulfikar Ali Bhutto is fighting from West as well as East Pakistan. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto will get the majority and form the government. And so it will be in the facade of this whole democratic setup. They will sort of, quote unquote, be able to elect and not select Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Once Zulfikar Ali Bhutto is ascended as a prime minister, then West Pakistan will be like, so this is a democratically elected government, and which basically mean ki whatever this government will decide, East Pakistan will have to accept. But then some accident happened. And what happened was that the Awami League basically swept the election. Okay. And the Awami League of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman won the election with 167 out of a total 169 seats in the East Pakistan. Okay, and as a result, he got the majority. Okay, because there were at least as much population or more population in Bangladesh than the population in West Pakistan at that time. Anyway, so because now Sheikh Mujibur Rahman won the election, he was supposed to be the prime minister, right? But the military dictatorship under this president and army general Yahya Khan, they were not ready to sort of make Mujibur Rahman the prime minister. So this Yahya Khan, he flew to Dhaka. They had several meetings, and in all these meetings, the Mujibur Rahman, this guy, was adamant on the demand that Bangladesh should get regional autonomy. They should have their own sort of they should have their own sort of defense. Um, and although it will be a whole union of Pakistan anyway, who will decide things like foreign policy, right? So they will together decide the foreign policy and everything, but East Pakistan will have their own military. Anyway, that was not accepted by Yahya Khan, and he basically, with a very sort of bragging attitude, he said that you have the votes, but I have the power. Okay, so which means ki
Vijay,
uh,
just one question. So there was kind of correct. There was Agartala conspiracy case was against Mujibur Rahman. Is that in 70 or 71? Agartala conspiracy. So it's well
I
documented where
Agartala
Mujibur Rahman,
conspiracy, which incident you
yeah,
are indicating about?
Mujibur Rahman actually came to Agartala and he met Indian leaders. So that was a kind of
Right, right.
pretext to actually make him a kind of traitor in the eyes of the Pakistani people.
Right, right. But I don't think it is sort of an officially recorded thing. I found this thing in, I think, Kalidas Bodh's book.
Hmm.
Uh, but the point is, Bangladesh overall and even Mujibur Rahman were keeping a very cordial relation, and all the Bangladeshi leaders, I mean, they used to frequently visit Kolkata at that time. I mean, it was a point of pain for the army commanders in West Pakistan, but it was what it was. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is well known that at that time Mujibur was sort of playing both sides. Um, See, I mean, I'm telling you the whole sort of dotted facts, which are sort of accepted by all parties, right? Whatever I'm saying here, these are the facts, and these kind of things like Agartala conspiracy or the meeting with Indian leaders, those were like sort of unaccepted historical, maybe rumors or facts, right? So let me establish this whole story with the facts, and then we will discuss the stories around these main dotted facts, right? Bullet points that we are sort of trying to describe here, right? uh, so what happened at that time? Okay, so I was um, what was I saying? So basically, then the president Yahya Khan, he was also very adamant, right? And he said that I'm not going to accept the regional autonomy, and because as Yahya Khan said that you have the votes, but I have the power because I am the military commander, right, and the general. um, and then there were frequent meetings and everything. And then Yahya Khan eventually said, "Ki, you know what? I'm going to write an entirely new constitution to demarcate the power structure in Pakistan." And then he called up an assembly, a national assembly, and that assembly actually called up on 3rd of March 1971. So 3 months from December to March, everything was hung pretty much. The prime minister was not decided, and then the national assembly was called. but it was boycotted by the leader of opposition, this Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, right? Because Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was thinking ki if I drag the whole situation from here, anyway the army is with me, so I have to just drag it a little further, and then I will sort of be selected as the prime minister, right? Anyway, so when this thing was happening, then it was around that time when Yahya Khan decided ki I am going to sort of crush the spirit of Awami League by brute force. Okay. And then basically what happened was a series of massacres and genocides. But initially what was happened ki the Awami League leaders, right, which were there in Bangladesh, who won the election. So Yahya Khan categorized the Awami League leaders into sort of three categories: white, grey, and black. Okay. So white Awami League leaders were basically the pro-Pakistani leaders. So the Pakistani army decided they will be scot-free, and the grey one we are basically, Pakistani army were not sure, or they were only engaged in politics and not into creating any sort of chaos against the Pakistani army. So they will be jailed. And the Black Awami League leaders, who are the most vocal leaders, who talk about these democratic rights and everything, they will be killed. Okay. Now, what was the sort of so the another narrative, the masking uh, of this massacre was the narrative that okay, the Bengalis are weak and they are not true Muslims, and some of them are India lovers, so they deserve to die. So this process started during the Feb and March to sort of dehumanize the Bangladeshis, specifically the secular Muslims and then the Hindus, so that this dehumanization process sort of insulate the rest of the mass to not react to the massacres. Uh, and then there was another. So in West Pakistan, meanwhile, around 22nd Feb, on this date, 22nd Feb 1971. So they literally had a roundtable conference. There were like the president Yahya Khan, president and the army general, the chief of staff Pirzada, army corps commander General Tikka Khan, the butcher of Balochistan, right? And the fourth one was the National Security Commission chairman Umar Khan, and the chief of intelligence Akbar Khan. So these five people sat on a roundtable conference on 22nd Feb 1971, and they designed a proper plan for Bengali massacre. Okay, and on 3rd of March 1971, a regiment of Balochi soldiers, they arrived at the Chittagong port with huge amount of ammunitions. And when this Baluchi soldier regiment arrived on Chittagong, Mujibur then called for a strike with the declaration that the movement of the Awami League will continue until the people realize their emancipation. Okay, the people of Bengal. The denial of the rights of the majority of the people by order of an undemocratic minority is an intolerable insult to the people. Okay, so this was Mujibur who were organizing protest and everything. And then there was a demonstration in Dhaka. But when people gathered in Dhaka, police started to sort of, well, army, it was the army people who started to fire at the crowd. Um, and around 200 people were killed. So this was the beginning. And then on 4th of March 1971, Tikka Khan, the Lieutenant General, he was appointed as the governor and the chief martial law officer of East Pakistan. And this Tikka Khan was the guy who committed a genocide already on the occupied nation of Balochistan in 1965, right? And because he was so sort of good at his job, now he was assigned this job of new massacre in Bangladesh to teach the right lesson to the Bangladeshis, right? And so Tikka Khan basically was he had the mentality of guys like Mussolini, right? He believed that all problem could be solved by 48 hours bloodbath. Okay, So he's like, I don't need to talk. I'm just going to fire bullet for 48 hours and everything will be solved. Rest of the people will be feeding from our own hand. Okay. So President Yahya Khan entrusted this guy because of this nice promise, right? And Yahya Khan came to Bangladesh on March, but he went back on 25th of March. And it was that day when this whole uh, massacre escalated to a new level. So on 25th of March, this President Yahya Khan went back to West Pakistan, and at the same day, around 11:25 p.m., around midnight, a platoon of Punjabi Balochi soldiers reached the Dhaka University with American M25 tanks and started shelling on the two student dormitories, Hall and Jagannath Hall. About 30 innocent students were killed within a minute. The rest of the students were ordered to come out and line up against the walls. All of them were shot by machine guns attached to the tanks and armored vehicles. Within 15 minutes, 109 students were massacred to death. The dead bodies of the students, who were Muslims, were carried to the roof of the Iqbal Hall and left there for the vultures. The Hindu corpses were thrown into a grave dug by six students who were also shot after they had finished their task of digging the grave. Then the army gave an order to kill everyone in these two dormitories, including the servants, workers, chefs, and professors. Madhu, an old man in charge of the hall canteen, was killed along with his wife, one son, and two daughters. Professor Govindachandra Dev, an old bachelor professor of philosophy who offered no challenge to the Pakistani regime, either through his lectures or through his writings, was dragged into a nearby ground and was shot along with a large number of poor students who he used to help. All this just because he was a Hindu. So this is I'm quoting from, I think, Robert Payne rather. He wrote a book, Massacre: The Genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh, something like that. And this is the page number 18. There was a clear method behind this madness because a death list of Hindus as well as the secular Muslim professors was published by the army after consulting with a few Muslim university staffs. So this proof, so these names were written in a sort of a cheat note, and this note, I think Indian Army or the Awami League leaders, they got hold of this cheat note, and it is still there in some museum, I guess, in Bangladesh itself. Anyway, so after consulting with a few Muslim university staff, they had the plan to kill the secular Muslim professors as well as Hindus. Such a list written on a piece of paper is in unkempt handwriting has been retrieved as a key historical document of this massacre. The scene of students coming out of the two halls with hands above their heads and getting shot against the walls was captured in a video by Dr. Muhammad Nasir, one of the professors of engineering. It had always been an essential strategy of the Islamic invaders to burn, kill, and destroy the intellectual arena first of any nation that they attack. The Dhaka University massacre was no exception, right? And then, while this whole massacre started in the university first, then around the same time, a large area of Dhaka was set on fire that night, and specifically Hindu residential areas and Hindu temples were targeted. Hindus coming out of the burning houses were not spared and mercilessly brushed fired. And here Robert Payne quote, they burned, looted, murdered, and raped at their pleasure. In the poverty stricken Hindu areas, all that was necessary was to set fire to the thatched roofs and watch the people streaming away like ants from a battered ant hill. Then they were machine gunned. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was soon captured by the army and he was flown into Pakistan. And around 7,000 civilians were killed on the day the military operation was launched, 25th of March. Another 3,000 arrested. The whole city was savaged brutally on that night and set on fire. Reporters, both native and foreigners, were warned that any bad mouthing about the military would have dire consequences. And the military said them, the press people, that if I can kill my own people, I can kill you as well. Okay. Um, and so this goes on. Um, right. And this thing was actually not unknown to the superpowers or to the Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia. But the United States of America and Saudi Arabia, neither of these two nations said any word against the atrocities being committed on the Bengalis. It is because of the fact that in Indian subcontinent, it is always this Ashraf white alliance that sort of colluded together to rule the native Hindus and the Paswan, the Muslims, right? And anyway, uh, then what I've written here, um, inflict torture, right, right. Okay, so then I've written a huge number of accounts of torture and everything, which you can sort of read from my book. Um, Right. Moreover, the so-called the bourgeois military, right? They created an alliance with the elite Muslims and the rich Muslim zamindars and officials. Um, and it is these zamindars, right, and the ansars who used to do the espionage to fetch information about the local rebels and convey it to the Pakistani army generals in Hindi or Urdu. Unfortunately, this elite class was hated by the Bengali masses, and consequently, the intelligence collected by them was either flawed or construed to fool the army. Yahya Khan did not take much about the accurate intelligence, though, because his plan was clear, and he said that we have to kill 3 millions of men, and the rest will eat out of our hands. And Yahya Khan would have liked to butcher all the Bengalis of East Pakistan and repopulate with the Punjabi Pakistanis, but there were too many Bengalis to begin with, and hence a complete annihilation was practically impossible. Right? But still, he was very passionate to sort of kill all of the men. Right? He was that much sort of abstinent on going on about this genocide. Um, anyway, so this was Yahya Khan, and Yahya Khan also has a history as claimed by himself, right? He said that he is a descendant of this great invader Nadir Shah, who battered Delhi to ruins in 1739. And so inside his own mind, Yahya Khan, he used to sort of have this sort of dream that he will be one day he will attack Delhi, slaughter the Hindu Kafirs, and burn the city to ashes, just like Nadir Shah did. And for him, India was the prize that every Ghazi general of Pakistan should crave for. And this vision empowered the general Yahya Khan and the Pakistani think tank under him to adopt the cruel martial tradition of Islam that vehemently despised Hindus and perpetuated inhuman, gut wrenching torture on them. Okay. Anyway, so which basically meant because it was designed in a very Islamic way, the template of this massacre was similar to the massacre that have been continuing for last 1400 years since the inception of Islam, right? It is through basically different ways, right? I mean, it is basically to give themselves a weird kind of pleasure from torturing the Kafirs in the pre-described scriptures, right? So first killing them, then dishonoring their dead corpses. Okay. And it is the same template. I've written about it in my book. So if you read, you will find that it is the same template which has been sort of going on for the 1400 years. The way of killing is the same. The way of dishonoring is the same, and it happened the similar way in. Bangladesh as well. And okay, so it is to be noted here that between the Punjabi and the Balochi regiment, right? So West Pakistan had two broad regiment. One was Punjabi and another was Balochi, made of Balochi soldiers. The Punjabis were more passionate and ruthless killers. The Baloch were good soldiers but reluctant murderers. There were cases where the Baloch soldiers even killed their Punjabi officers and joined the Mukti Bahini fighters. Punjabi soldiers were prone to becoming brainwashed by the Ashrafi generals to kill the Bengalis out of sheer meaningless hatred. Balochi soldiers could not be brainwashed so easily, right? So, for example, I have recorded a few instances where where the Punjabi sort of army general is commanding the Balochi regiment that hey, there is a mazar, so destroy it. No, so they are ordering ki hey, there is a temple, destroy it. And so the Balochi soldiers were like, no, it looks like a mazar. Um, but then the army generals were insistent ki no, I'm telling you this is a temple, so you have to destroy it as well. Because mazar again within Islam, in some part of Islam, right? Mazar is a sort of prohibited monument. They also ought to be destroyed. So this was what was going on in Bangladesh as well. So all the officers who participated in the 1971 genocide had expertise in small-sized massacres in Balochistan already. They had the martial law in mind, one that invoked the complete suppression of dissent, even if it meant killing 1 million people or even 75 million people. People had to be killed and tortured until total conformity to the law, quote unquote law, was achieved within East Pakistan. The continuation of such a mission resulted in so much disaster and devastation that calling it anything less than genocide should be unpropitious. Here is an account of the spine chilling gruesomeness and the cruelty maintained by the Pakistani army in their treatment to the victims. And here I mention a case where so there was so you if you see the map of Bangladesh, so at the almost at the center there is Dhaka, and to a little south of Dhaka there is this place called Narayanganj, right? It is at the bank of Buriganga, which is another sort of tributary river to Ganga. And at the bank of Buriganga there was a place called Horiharpur. And so in Horiharpur, by the river Buriganga, they created this mass extermination camp. Okay, so Hitler's extermination camp had this huge boundary, like huge walled space where Jews were sort of working right without much food. But here near Harihar Pada extermination camp, there was this small sort of farmhouse like structure. So and there was no expensive gas chamber or anything. And so they used to just shoot a Hindu or these any Muslim, secular Muslim, and then they wrap it up in bundle and they threw it into the river. Right, it was that easy. Although the Hariharpada extermination camp was primitive and unsophisticated as compared to the Polish extermination camps in Europe, it was efficient, orderly, and clean. Since all the large towns and most of the villages lay on the banks of rivers, the same system could be and was employed elsewhere as well, right? And yeah, so during the time also when this genocide was happening, the Pakistani army soldiers, because they were anyway corrupt, right? They started to accept bribes from the Bengalis for sparing their lives. And soon it became widely known that one could save his or her life given that he or she had the ability to bribe the soldiers with $1,000 or so. This also meant that a large number of poor people who did not have the money to bribe did not survive before the bullets shot at them. The leaders of the Awami League were not to be spared because, again, they were categorized into white, grey, and black. So, white were used to be spared because they were pro Pakistani. The Gray people used to be the gray Awami League leaders used to be jailed, and the black used to be killed. And in this whole process, acha, for the black, they used to kill the leader as well as their wife, sons, and daughters, and they used to burn their house to the ground. And in this process, they killed around 17,000 members of Awami League. Uh, and all these killings were dismissed by Yahya Khan as nothing more than a show put on by the Indians, or slight disturbances attributed to secessionists, miscreants, rebels, extremists, intruders, anti-state elements, criminals, mischief makers, saboteurs, and infiltrators. Okay, so this is how Yahya Khan was simultaneously whitewashing the genocidal crime. So this is sort of briefly what was going on around after March till, let's say, August or September, right? And in this whole sort of episode, there was already sort of a, it got the recognition, right? Or at least mute sort of expectation of from the Western countries as well as from the Arabian countries, right? If you go to in one of my chapters, I have sort of exhaustively discussed this part of the role of USA and the Arabian countries in this East Pakistan genocide. So, as I write, the initial reaction of India to the genocide in East Pakistan was sheer helplessness. But this was due to the fact that Pakistan was in alliance with USA and China and had them on their side. Both these countries were actively engaged in exporting weapons and ammunition to Pakistan. This meant that an escalation of the issue to United Nations was also futile, as Pakistan had gained the proxy veto power through its alliances with USA and China. The conscience of the US administration was dead in this regard, to say the least. The US consulate and intelligence in East Pakistan were sending regular updates about the exact situation there and about the brutal massacre of men, women, children happening in broad daylight. In fact, it was the report of the US Consul General to Dhaka, uh, Archer K. Blood, who accepted for the first time that a selective genocide was taking place in East Pakistan. So Archer Blood here writes in his memoir, quote, at the department spokesperson's noon briefing of the press on April 2nd, 1971, a reporter noted that there had been reports on the Hill and published reports in the press that our government is in possession of a good deal of information from our consulate general in Dhaka regarding very sanguinary situation there. The reporter said that even the phrase selective genocide has been used in diplomatic reporting. Okay, with support of Pakistan military, non-Bengali Muslims are systematically attacking poor people's quarters and murdering Bengalis and Hindus. Streets of Dhaka are flooded with Hindus and others seeking to get out of Dhaka. We were unable to cite specific reasons for the army's move against Hindus. When talking with us, West Pakistani resident in the East Pakistan often equated wicked Hindus and wicked Indians using the term interchangeably. And in a telegram entitled Slaughter of Hindus, we reported that in recent days, we have been receiving numerous accounts, many from the reliable eyewitnesses, which suggested a common pattern of army operations whereby troops entered a village, inquired whether the Hindus lived, and killed the male Hindus. There appeared to be little, if any, killing of Hindu women and children. So it is again typical Islamic template, right? Kill the kafir men, capture the Hindu women and children as the male ganimat, as the war booty. Anyway, Archer Blood further mentions in a telegram on 25th of May 1971, clearly pointing out that the Pakistani army was specific about targeting the Hindu population of Bangladesh. They attacked unarmed, innocent Hindus for no other reason than their identity of being a Hindu. Okay, so it was a selective genocide, as reported by the U.S. consulate general's report sent to Washington D.C. But the president of the United States, Richard Nixon, maintained deliberate ignorance of the harrowing situation of Hindus in East Pakistan. This was the first time in modern history that a native population of a Muslim majority nation revolted against the Islamic theocratic state with the dream of establishing, at least in its manifesto, an inclusive democracy. Unfortunately, the United States stood with the theocratic and totalitarian states of Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and China. Both were sort of totalitarian states. So United States stood with all three of them, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and China, and did not denounce the genocide. The US President Nixon supported Yahya Khan with weapons and strategies and was hence an active accomplice in all these atrocities. Nixon publicly denied sending any assistance to Pakistan, but was providing rifles and machine guns to shoot innocent Bengali peasants, as well as heavy tanks and armaments to curb the activities of the Liberation Force of East Pakistan, namely Mukti Bahini. The US government revealed later that more than $3.8 million worth of military equipments were provided to Pakistan after the genocide had already begun. By November 1971, India was flooded with refugees from East Pakistan. Officially, around 10 million refugees, 1 crore refugees, were being looked after in the various camps at that time. Many of them were ill and wounded. A few lakhs succumbed to cholera epidemic. The condition of the refugee camps during the monsoon was so abysmal that one could stand in a refugee camp and see these huts stretching to the horizon. And beyond the horizon, there were more huts, more concrete pipes, and more huddled families sheltering under tarpaulins. This crisis of humanity could not melt the heart of US diplomats. Henry Kissinger, the national secretary advisor of the United States, came to Rawalpindi in July 1971 and also went to China to meet the premier of China, Zhou Enlai. Now, why these guys were maintaining silence, specifically US and China? All this was happening because they had a bigger plan. And here is the plan. So the plan was to break India into several pieces and balkanize it. The US and China were actively engaged in playing essential roles to bring this plan to fruition. This plan comprised of three stages. First, perpetrate a genocide to quash all Bengalis to extinction and establish in East Pakistan a military dictatorship. This was already ongoing in 1971. Second, develop a entente cordial between China and USA, sort of friendship between China and USA, who were not on good terms around that time. Yahya Khan was buying defense armaments from both these countries and was trying to work out a common ground on which the union of US and Chinese dispensations could be built. Third, Pakistan would invade India with the assistance of China and US. India, since it was isolated and non aligned with any superpower, could be attacked from both eastern and western parts of Pakistan, while China would crack the chicken's neck. The USA would then rend South India from the rest of the subcontinent. The box that was India would be crushed from all the four sides. Okay, so frontal attack from both East and West Pakistan. China will attack the chicken's neck, and US will attack the from the navy, from the Indian Ocean side. Right? It was a simple idea, and it was hatched by Ayub Khan, who pitched it to the Chinese during his Beijing visit, just before the while all the cyclone and all the natural catastrophe was going on in Bangladesh. Ayub Khan was working on this. Later, Yahya Khan presented this to President Nixon. Yahya Khan also signed an agreement with China and gifted a chunk of Pakistani occupied Kashmir in this regard to China in exchange for the possibility of a joint invasion. So you know that a large part of POK, what's the name of that part? So a large part of the POK on the very north side is given to China. It was given to China with the promise that China will conduct this sort of raid right after the genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh in 1971 is complete. Now
Aksai
Kissinger,
Chin. Aksai Chin.
no. It's not Aksai Chin. Pahalgaon,
Baltistan?
No, no.
No,
It's
Baltistan is there.
no. To the very north, I think it is called Pahalgaon, right? POK given to China. Let's see. It's probably called Pahalgaon. Saksgaon, Shaksgam Valley.
Okay, okay, Sakskam.
Huh. And it is to the north of the Gilgit Baltistan. Okay, so Kissinger later came to Delhi also to convey Nixon's attitude of zero sympathy for the Mukti Bahini of East Pakistan, refused to acknowledge the genocide. Kissinger was also greeted with a protest march in Delhi with the slogan Kissinger of Death, and Kissinger's meeting with Indira Gandhi was chilly. Indira was perhaps well aware of the attitude of this sexist man who essentially had a vulgar tongue, a rotten heart, and an abusive soul. Kissinger and Nixon would call Indira a bitch and Indians bastards. Kissinger told Nixon in a meeting on 17th of June 1971, while this genocide was going on, that Indians are super flatterers and they are masters at flattery. They are masters at subtle flattery. That's how they survived 600 years. They suck up. Their great skill is to suck up to people in key positions. Kissinger was a heartless diplomat who had little space for humanism in his diplomacy. And Robert Payne also writes here, and I would like to quote: uh, "They, means Indians, could not imagine him visiting the refugee camps. Said that owlish face opposite the face of a wounded Bengali girl, and no one could doubt how much of dignity and human warmth there was in the girl, and how little in that man." President Nixon was one notch higher when it came to the usage of vituperative racist assault. In an Oval Office conversation in June 1971, Nixon opined, quote, "Undoubtedly, the most unattractive women in the world are Indian women. Undoubtedly." And he continued, "The most sexless, nothing, these people. I mean, people say, what about the black Africans? Well, you can see something, the vitality there. I mean, they have a little animal like charm. But God, these Indians, act pathetic. Woo." In another meeting on 4th of November 1971, with Indira Gandhi, Nixon whined at Kissinger and he said, "To me, they turn me off. How the hell they turn other people on? Henry, tell me. They are repulsive and it's just easy to be tough with them." On 12th of November, Nixon complained again. "I don't know how they reproduce." Means they means the Indians. One may wonder whether this deeply seated racism and condescending attitude of Nixon and Kissinger ended up putting the United States on the wrong side of history. Kissinger rose to fame, to the circle of power within United States for his egregious diplomatic opinions, such as Christmas bombing in Hanoi and Haiphong, opined that putting Jews into gas chambers may be a humanitarian concern, but not an American concern. But his stand on the Bangladeshi genocide of 1971 was deliberately cruel and outlandishly inhuman. Kissinger went to the level of damaging the career of Archer Blood, who was the US Consul General of East Pakistan in 1971, who witnessed the genocide of the Bengalis and continuously dissented with the White House's pro Pakistan genocidal stance. To put it in the Kissinger way, it might have been a humanitarian concern, but not an American concern. When Nixon asked whether it was against the law to transfer illegal arms and ammunition to Pakistan, Kissinger verily acknowledged that it was, and both of them cared a hang about it. They both went against Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who democratically deserved to be the prime minister, ignored the regional reports sent from Bangladesh to White House, defied in racial way the nationalism and dignity of the Bengalis, and made no effort to strike a deal that would pacify all the stakeholders. And I have gone on in this chapter, um, um, and you can get it from my book. But anyway, eventually, US and China and Saudi Arabia, they were put on the wrong side of history, right? Because Pakistan surrendered and Bangladesh was liberated on 16th of December 1971. Exactly how many? 73 years ago, right? And anyway, when India learned about the plan hatched by Pakistan, China, and the United States to squash India from four sides, the Indian army was ordered to stay alert. The Indian National Congress, led by Indira Gandhi, came back to power with an absolute majority shortly before the massacre of East Pakistan began. Thankfully, right? India and the Soviet Union signed a pact on 9th of August 1971, in which both parties vowed to come to the assistance of the other in case a foreign power invaded any of the two countries. This pact brought some assurance that a superpower would come to help, that is Russia, would come to help to sort of help India in case the sovereignty of India was violated by another foreign country. It was a long monsoon in 1971, and at the end of the monsoon, large part of East Pakistan was already occupied by Mukti Bahini, primarily because a large number of troops were sent to the border to stop the Indian attack. Pakistan committed a couple of strategic mistakes by replacing a third-rate general named Tika Khan with a weak, corrupt sixth-rate general named Amir Abdullah Khan as the commanding positions, right? And obviously, you know what happened after that. um, Pakistani army was hugely outnumbered by Indian army. Pakistan army had around 3.25 lakh soldiers fighting for Pakistan against 9.2 lakh soldiers fighting for India. Pakistan was absolutely of no match as compared to India. And above all else, Pakistanis were delusional of, in an almost funny and cowardly way, while they were collapsing from inside. And you know, days before the surrender, there was this General Niazi who gave orders to burn and demolish whatever little remained of the wealth of East Pakistan when they knew that they are going to lose this battle. All the banknotes of the central bank were destroyed. Final massacre was enacted to kill thousands of intellectuals, medical practitioners, professors, editors, and students. The bodies were thrown into shallow ponds and depressions in a brickyard around Dhaka. When the Indian army entered Dhaka, they saw burnt out, broken localities, bullet holes on the walls of the house, and stains of blood. All the old and heritage buildings were looted and then razed to ground, with all the inmates burnt alive. On 16th of December 1971, around 4:31 p.m., General Niazi signed the instrument of surrender at the Dhaka racecourse, the same place where Mujibur Rahman gave the call of independence. Now, ironically, it was here too that General Niazi, commander of the forces of Muslim Pakistan, surrendered his arms to three generals of Hindu India. And out of these three generals, one was a Parsi, another is Sikh, and the third one was a Jew. It is estimated that Pakistan Islamic Army killed around 30 lakh innocent Bengalis, forced 1 crore people to flee, and raped 4 lakh Bengali women, mostly Hindu, in a systematic rape campaign, of which 25,000, at least in the official record, resulted in pregnancies. The genocide of East Pakistan by the Pakistan Ashrafi army is certainly the greatest genocide of the late 20th century and surpasses all events of atrocities and grave human rights violation in recent modern history, both in its intensity and in its scale. And then I have discussed in my book whether this was a Hindu genocide or not. The rape incident by the Razakars and Pakistani army, and all these trivial sort of facts. Well, not trivial, but all these facts, right? With which I built this sort of story that I just told you.
Yeah, yeah, Bijeet, thank you. So, are you done with the reading or anything else is there?
I mean, there are a lot of other things that I could have covered, but I think this is a sort of coherent story that I have sort of built. Um, Here I can go on about all the brutal things like the rape
Hmm.
incidents and everything, the testimonies. But now you can sort of um, discuss a few part about the Vijay Diwas and everything, if you want to. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, for VijayDiwas, so today it's a sad day and a proud day at the same time. So sad day because millions of Hindu refugees who came to West Bengal, escaping persecution, brutality suffered, and the other day the creation of Bangladesh, an independent state. So it's a mixed feeling on everybody's part. You have some good and bad things at the same time. So I want your specific inputs with regard to the refugee camps which were there in West Bengal and how they were. Because I have one small uh, black and white photo, historical photo, which was taken. So could you just explain to me in your research the condition of refugee camps in West Bengal compared to what we had in Bangladesh?
Right. Uh, so what was going on? I mean, even in the refugee camps, right? As we have already discussed, I mean, because of this genocide, I think almost 30 lakh people were killed, and almost 1 crore were displaced, or they were sort of forced. I mean, they had to sort of flee Bangladesh and come to this side, to West Bengal, and because to sort of accommodate them, I mean, the government had to make huge like refugee camps. Uh, and it was the same year when the monsoon was also pretty intense, which meant that in these refugee camps, there was the water that they were consuming was bad. The tents were sort of soaked and broken, and because of this, they became prey to a lot of diseases due to mosquitoes or coming from water. Like there was already a cholera epidemic, which took life of again a few thousands, um, and it was around the same time. I mean, the sort of medical associations and all the medical staffs, they were also facing very difficulty, because they didn't know how to manage such a sort of big population of refugees living so unhygienically in in these refugee camps. And also to add to this, there were a few sort of, not a few, like the record is that around 5 lakh women got raped. Okay, because you see the idea of this guy Tikka Khan was that because Bengali, I mean, there was already this idea that Bengali women were like quote unquote slut. Okay, because they don't wear burqa, they wear sari, and because they were this sort of lowly creature, they need to be impregnated because it is the same woman who give birth to these black short Bengali men, right, in the words of Tikka Khan. So Tikka Khan said that it is the responsibility of the Pakistani soldiers to impregnate these Bengali women, so that the next generation that is created or that is born on Bangladesh are the son of real sort of Pakistani generals, right? Um, and so there was this whole rape genocide that was going on, and I have discussed it in my book as well very extensively. due to as a result of this rape genocide, at least 5 lakh women were sort of raped. 2 lakh got impregnated, um, and the situation you see, like these are single women or married women, like they had nowhere to go pretty much, and once they got impregnated, like what could they do? They were already sort of scarred in the society, right? So there was this sort of quote unquote this rape epidemic or rape genocide, you can call it. um, and in the in the refugee camp, it was also very hard to manage all these pregnant girls who were giving birth to children. So to sort of um, to sort of give them some amount of courage, these women were used to be called virangana, means the brave heart, right? But see, giving it a name does not compensate for the suffering that they had gone through. So all these things were happening. I mean, it was a huge chaos at this side of India as well. I mean, and we got very little help from United Nations or these superpowers because they were in denial of this genocide. That is the most cruel part of it.
Got it. Okay. So we will just finish this session. Bijit, could you just tell us about the surrender which took place by General Niazi? If you could share a few words from your book, and then we'll go to question.
Right, right. So because my book is the thesis of this book is genocide. I mean, the
Hmm.
scope of this book is only covering the genocide. So I have not extensively written much on the surrender. I have only written, I think, a couple of pages maybe. And so the war started. I mean, the war officially started, I think, on 2nd of December, right? It did not last long, thankfully. It lasted only 2 weeks, and within 2 weeks, Pakistan got fragmented into two nations. Um, an independent Bangladesh was born, um, and obviously, I mean, there were like from Indian side, literally there were like three commanders, right? One was a Parsi, one was Sikh, and another one was a Jew, right? In a Hindu dominated secular country, these were the army generals who defeated so-called Muslim state of Pakistan, right? And they signed it. I mean, Niazi signed this what do you call it? This instrument of surrender, right? On what the 16th of December around 4:30 p.m. I guess. Um, and then yeah, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was liberated. And to add to this, now we can sort of discuss a few stories here and there. So it is said that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was playing a double game, and so the idea was that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman will stay away from this Bangladeshi, the mainland Bangladesh, while this massacre will go on. And once the massacre is complete and all the Hindus are taken care of, that is, they're killed, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman again will fly back to Bangladesh, and from there they will open a new front to attack India. Now, because of this India-Pakistan war in December, what happened was that Pakistan was defeated, a new country was born, so Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had to land on a independent nation of Bangladesh, and as a result, you see, he was arrested in March. He was sort of uh, scot free. He got scot free in around December, I guess, 20th of December or so. Uh, so he could not play his game, right? This typical Ashrafi Islamist game, because the whole sentiment got sort of got subverted, right, to a pro-India side. And on top of that, I wanted to say a few more things. Um, yeah, one more thing was that it is said that the prime minister, the then prime minister of Bangladesh, the interim prime minister, I forgot his name. So he signed a pact with India where he said that probably Bangladeshi army will be taken care of by India, and there will be a common sort of, there will always be a convergence in the foreign policy of both the countries. India will help them to certain things, and in exchange, Bangladesh will sort of ensure the friendship and all these kind of, like, there were a few strategic points on which the Indian army generals made the East Pakistani prime minister to sign before they invaded East Pakistan to create Bangladesh. And it is said that it is still with the Indian government. I mean, neither Pakistan or Bangladeshi government know where this document is, but it is said that this document is still valid and still in action. So India can invoke it anytime at our convenience.
Okay, so I have few questions before we go to the audience questions. So, can you just elaborate role played by Soviet Union to cement the defeat of Pakistan or the victory for India?
Right. So what happened was that, so it was the joint plan of US, China, and Pakistan. At least these three countries, that Pakistan will. So once the genocide is complete, genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh is complete, then Pakistan will invade India from both sides, east and west, and China will attack the chicken's neck, and US will bring their navy to attack from the south, from the ocean side, right? Now, I think it was either not known to US, or probably they knew a very little, but they could not believe that Russia would do such a thing. So when this sort of uh, war, right, was at peak in the in December, right? Then, and Pakistan Navy was brutally attacked and sort of decimated by India. Then US basically sent their I think Navy fleet, their air fleet, and submarines, I guess, as well, to the Bay of Bengal. Okay, and then India sort of knew about it, and they had to call Russia. So Russia also sent their fleet to counter the US fleets roaming around the Bay of Bengal. And as a result, because these it was like two superpowers, like face to face, and in these kind of circumstances, the superpowers don't want to sort of attack each other, because to them their own relationship then becomes more important than anything else. So then US fleet had to go back, and as a result, the obviously Chattogram to fail. Chattogram is the most popular um, and the most important port in Bangladesh, and as a result, Dhaka also fell. And because Indian Navy also created a blockade so that no arms or ammunition could reach Pakistan. I mean, the East Pakistan from West Pakistan. So as a result, I mean, the Pakistani army ran also out of ammunition, and which means ki with the assistance of the Russian fleet, India could secure a victory.
Okay, so last question. When this surrender took place in 1971, 16 December, okay, what was the role of Indian government in repatriating the Hindu refugees to their original place of birth, Bangladesh, and why so many people actually came to India as refugees and did not go back to the newly created Bangladesh?
And you know the obvious reason. Um, So one thing that happened was that after 1971, after all these things happened in Bangladesh got liberated, then after this whole thing, after this whole genocide, Bangladesh actually went back to its uh, to adopt a Islamist nature. Okay, and if you listen to Mujibur Rahman, even after 1971, it is said that he used to have collaborations with the ISI as well, because because apparently he was afraid that India will capture this land of Bangladesh, um, and also to sort of give his this land, right, of Bangladesh, its own identity. He thought ki Bangladesh will have to become Islamic to at least create the distinction between the West Bengal and Bangladesh. uh, the Bangladesh will have to adopt an Islamic nature. So I think they made a constitution which was later sort of changed, and more Islamic clauses were introduced. Um Mujibur Rahman started to give Muslim slogans, okay, rather than secular slogans. um, and as a result, I mean, you can read this whole book by Kalidas Vaidya. As I said, all these sort of double game is very well explained there. And when he could not sort of balance this game, because there was a time when the Islamic faction of Bangladesh thought ki it is now futile to sort of keep Mujibur Rahman in power. So because, see, from the perspective of Pakistan, they had two options: to keep Mujibur Rahman alive and a stooge, and second, to kill him. Now, um, for the second option, if they killed him, because Mujibur Rahman was sort of secular in the eyes of the Islamists, most of the Bangladeshi Muslim population, then they knew ki killing Mujibur Rahman would not bring the whole population to the street and to create chaos, right? I mean, once again, it will be a very silent operation and a smooth operation. The second thing was to sort of keep Mujibur Rahman in the position of the prime minister, right? And there the problem was that if Mujibur Rahman is alive, then he will sort of again play the double game, and in the way there is a chance ki he will secularize the Bangladeshi populace. So it was in the benefit of the radical faction and the Bangladeshi army as well, right, in collusion with ISI to kill Mujibur Rahman. And as a result, Mujibur Rahman was killed in 1974. That ushered a new sort of age of Islam in Bangladesh, right? And you asked me about the role of Indian state in the refugee camp.
Repatriation, repatriation.
Right, right. So, I mean, the point is that India actually I mean, I'm not saying it as, I don't want to sound a very sort of, I don't like to have a very separatist voice, but in like the Delhi, right? The the Delhi government of India, so to say, the central government, they actually try to use it obviously to solve a long-standing issue, right? I mean, two fronts of Pakistan to the east and west. So Indira Gandhi used it very wisely to sort of and very justifiably, but a very little sort of compensation or anything was given to the refugees at that time. And also the Liaquat Nehru Pact was also in act at that time. That was signed in 1950, which would actually mean ki Indian government preferred that the Hindu population of Bangladesh stayed in Bangladesh, right? Because as per the Nehru Liaquat Pact, uh, it was decided that no, so rehabilitation will be given to the Hindu refugees, but no what do you call it? No compensation, right? No compensation will be given in the form of money or house or anything, right? Which actually meant ki, I mean, this whole harrowing situation of the refugees actually continued. I mean, it is still very much sort of the imprint of that event is still visible in Bengal, at least in the border areas.
Okay, so last, my questions are over. So we have Neener here who wants you to talk about the Blood Telegram book before we go to the audience
Blood
question.
telegram, the Archer blood wala, na?
Yes, yes, yes. The American diplomat who wrote those telegrams to
Uh-huh.
document.
Right, right. So that was the point. So here is this Archer blood and other people in the consul general of Dhaka, who wanted to, who had a very clear conscience that and there was BBC also. BBC also documented a very large number of these massacre and genocide events. And after getting the BBC News and their own internal report, these general, they decided to stay on the right side of history, and they were very vocal about it. Ki, I mean, in fact, they wrote about it. Ki, we don't, we are same. I mean, they knew the attitude of Kissinger and Nixon, right? But they said that we're reporting because we want to be on the right side of the history. Um, and many of the accounts that we get about this genocide, and in fact calling it a genocide, right, it is attributed, thankfully, to Archer Blood and his telegrams and reports.
Thank you, Bijeet, for, as I mentioned earlier. So today is a day where you feel proud what happened to the Pakistani army, and you also feel sad what happened to the millions of Hindu refugees, what they had went through. So I don't know whether to celebrate or whether to feel sad in one way or the other. But anyway, we'll go
No,
back to
I
the
mean,
audience.
I think the way we should remember this thing is that the truth will always prevail. I mean, dharma will always prevail, right? No matter how much genocide, how much massacre you commit to establish your supremacy and to dehumanize the others, right, who does not conform to your ideology or your doctrine. It is the truth and the dharma that will always prevail, no matter how bad the situation is. I mean, right now, if the Bangladeshi government is thinking ki by committing the Hindu genocide and atrocities on Hindus, again we will be strengthening our position. No, it cannot happen that way. You know, there will always uh, a chaos that will be created because you cannot build a society on the basis of falsehood and genocide. It is genocide that bifurcates the morals of a society. And the more number of genocide that you commit, the larger number of bifurcation that happens in overall the national moral, right? So it is never advisable for any country or for any leader to sort of adopt that form of heinous atrocity to save his or her own ideology. It never has worked, and it will never work. So this is how we should sort of remember this day.
Got it. So the first question we have from RS, regular viewer. So how much contribution Bongo Mukti Bahini had in liberation war? Since many Bangladeshis claim that Indian army had no contribution, only Bongo Mukti Bahini fought the war.
Right. So what happened? So when the Pakistani army came to know ki India is going to invade East Pakistan, so many of the Pakistani soldiers were sent to borders, right, to eastern and western border to fight India, and they had the hope ki the I mean inside Bangladesh the sort of rebellion will be crushed by the local natives, the radical faction of the society. Now that did not work because of two reasons. That Bangladesh, with the help of, I mean, Bangladeshi Hindus pretty much led it. This is not to subvert any historical fact, but it is very much manifest in all the historical records. Even the name Bangladesh was given by a Hindu. I forget his name. So then, in case of narrative building, Calcutta helped a lot. ISI had to sort of seek refuge of the West Bengal state government in Calcutta to sort of spread the narrative through the radio from Calcutta through Akashvani. And it is because the Pakistani soldiers were employed mainly on the borders, a large chunk of it. Then it pretty much helped the Mukti Bahini to sort of crush the enemy within and sort of at least create the chaos that was needed to sort of frighten the Pakistani army. Um, and and also one more thing that happened around the time was that India played very cunningly. I mean, it was probably the best fight that India, if you call it a Hindu nation, gave. Right? I mean, so from the Kolkata radio and everything, we announced a new prime minister, a new nation in the name of Bangladesh. We appointed probably a new representative of this new country named Bangladesh even before the war started. So India played pretty good. I mean, against the Pakistani sort of generals. I mean, Pakistani generals, because their mentality was ki, Bangladeshis did not have any weapons, so we can crush their spirit by killing a million of them. Uh, they did not play smart.
Got it. So we have one more question. So, is there any records available about the Pak Army General Yahya Khan's racist and misogynist comments towards Bengali women of Bangladesh?
Are this guy was so stupid. I think Yahya Khan. He used to. I think you can find it in YouTube. Many of them. There are a large number of video recordings. Uh, there are a few interviews that are published by I think BBC, and a few recorded in various books by Robert Payne, and I think in Archer K. Blood's book also. They have sort of exhaustively recorded what this Yahya Khan or Tikka Khan used to say and how they used to give interviews. You should listen to these guys to understand how stupid these guys were actually.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, yeah, just by going through the interviews, na, it will be very clear ki the at the leader level, at that level of dispensation, the whole Pakistani state was did not have a good leader. You listen to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, how he talks. I mean, they talk with all these sort of attempted Western accents, right? But out of that Western accent comes really stupid words. I mean, you should listen to their interviews and you laugh at them actually.
yeah. So I'll add one more thing to it before we go to the next question. Is that maybe 1947 or even prior to that, people who could think came to India, and only the dumb people remained in Pakistan, whether it was east or west. And you
Ah,
see, the continuous decline of the both of these nations from
right,
1947 onwards. You see today what Pakistan and Bangladesh is today. So
right,
you need smart people to create a nation, but if you have enough dumb people in their countries, you will have what we see today, as everybody knows.
right. Today there is a news that the biggest sort of textile mill, I guess, right, is shut in Bangladesh, which is going to affect like 70 different big textile companies in Bangladesh. So yeah, I mean, they just don't understand how to create nation. Because the nation would, no matter how easy or difficult the term is, it is actually antithetical to the idea of Islamic Ummah. So whenever you start thinking a lot about Islam, and that is the point when you start to diverge from the idea of a nation. And no matter what, the only accepted idea of sovereignty in this world right now, in this planet Earth, comes in the form of a nation only.
Yeah, okay. So I have one question which from Nina. So I'll let me take it that. I'll add one more thing here. So we see correct from 1947 onwards, the continuous otherization, the persecution of Hindus, which was taking place as the society was anti-Hindu in nature. What where the it was going on when this celebration taking place? So when 1971, when you had the liberation war take place, the Mukti Bahini was there. So where at that time Hindus and Muslims were working together, or still there was a divide in the society at pre-existed 71?
No, no, the divide. See, Bangladesh was created. I mean, Pakistan was divided, sort of, and destroyed, bifurcated, whatever you call it, because there were many fault lines in within Pakistan and within Bangladesh, within East Pakistan as well. One of the fault line was obviously the Hindu persecution, right? And it is very obvious. I mean, Indira Gandhi gave a lot of interviews, and she talked a lot about the persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh, and the question that why were Hindus targeted in Bangladesh. To answer that, I can quote a few things. Um since the Pakistani army considered itself as an institution of the Ghazis who waged war in the name of Allah, raping the Kafir woman in Allah's name was considered holy. The forced bodily transgression and the mutilation of women's sex organs were considered a triumph of good over evil, a victory of Islam over kufr. And this is written by none other than, I think, Jessica Lee Rahman. She actually made a report and a research work on the rape genocide in Bangladesh, which is published. And as per Jessica Lee Rahman, this is what was going on. So, and she goes on, the first step of a genocide is otherizing and dehumanization. The eternal hatred of the Ashrafs for the Hindu culture in the subcontinent was channelized through the Pakistani soldiers to enable them to otherize and dehumanize Bengali men and women. Bengali women, according to West Pakistani Ashrafs, were slutty because they wore saris, they loved music and dancing. Jessica Lee Rahman, in a research work, quotes from her interview with a Pakistani officer named Fazal, who had been in East Pakistan for almost a year prior to the war breaking out. And here is the quotation quote, the women bathe openly so that men walking by can see them, and they wear saris that with one pull fall off their body like Indians. They are very attached to music like Hindus, and they have their daughters dance for guests. They take pride in this dancing and music like prostitutes. My daughters do not dance, neither does my wife. This music and dancing is not Islamic. Our women are not prostitutes like Bengalis. In another interview, Jessica found deep rooted supremacist attitudes within West Pakistanis towards the Bangladeshis because Bangladeshis were like Hindus. Quote, they were short, dark, and very ugly, but the women have beautiful hair, long and black because they eat a lot of coconut and use coconut oil in their hair. I remember hearing a news report about how a Bengali official said that half of their population was Pakistani, but I think this was just propaganda because if this was true, they would look like us. I mean, we are much taller, lighter, and we are good looking people, and we Punjabis are strong, and look at them, they are nothing like us. According to West Pakistanis, Bengali men were weak, Bengali women were slutty and primitive. Hence, raping Bengali women should not be abnormal. Jessica provides in the testimony of a West Pakistani army officer about a junior soldier under his command. Quote, my junior had such a lust for women. I know he raped many of them and nothing was ever said to him by our seniors. But one day after he had been sent to Chittagong, my senior commander came to me saying, do you know what the idiot of yours did? that friend of yours, he got killed, could not control himself, and he was such a stupid man that they killed him. I later found that when he was on his way to Chittagong on the train, he had seen three Bengali women on the side of the tracks bathing. So he stopped the train and he raped them. And the villagers came after he was done with the girls, and they cut off his head. He had no other soldiers with him because he was delivering a message. So they just killed him. I know he should not have done the rapes, but they should not have killed him. He was such a good man. So this sort of account I have recorded, and I have referenced from many reports and everything. And through these quotes and these references, it is very clear how they used to sort of see the Bangladeshi men and women as like as if they like Hindus were the epitome of all these problems because Hindu women were slutty and Hindu men are weak. This kind of attitude, this dehumanization, led to this whole genocide.
Okay, so the next question: how many, as per records, how many Bengali Hindus came to India from East Pakistan?
1 crore, 1 crore.
1 crore.
Official record is 1 crore.
Got it. This is a very interesting question from Nandi. Uh, why there were Bangladesh supporting concerts conducted by very famous singers in the US at that time, supported by UNICEF and George Harrison, concert for Bangladesh. I think that's very. I think we have a lot of videos on also on YouTube for this. So
No,
the
because
US was.
Pakistan had a cordial relation with United States. You have to understand it was not Bangladesh back then.
East Pakistan.
It was basically East Pakistan. And at the same time, they were planning ki, bhai, this is the Eastern Front from which we are going to perform the Gajwa-e-Hind to attack India, right? So, so, so no wonder. And Bangladesh had a long history of music as well. I mean, all kind of music, starting from baul, folk song, right, the fakir, and all these. Starting from there to they had a long history of rock songs as well. So, I mean, Bangladeshi people love music, which is haram in Islam anyway, but they love it.
So correct, the connections between the music prompted that the independent musicians in US were actually trying to raise awareness about what's happening in East Pakistan.
So there was I think George Harrison also after while this genocide was going on, he raised a lot of money to sort of help the victims of this genocide, and they sent it to Bangladesh.
Got it. The next question is very controversial. Do Razakars assisted Pak army in Bengali Hindu in Bangladesh during 71 Liberation War?
Obviously, I mean it is already recorded. I mean, I think I have also discussed it. And in the consciousness of Bangladesh, this newly created Bangladesh, they had written so many songs and poetry about the Razakars, right, and their atrocities in Bangladesh.
Just one additional to this. So when we see what happened after independence, when it became Bangladesh, what happened to these Razakars? Like where they like how where they made into the general population? What happened to them?
Because they are the Ashraf, so they created this new party, which was
BNP,
huh,
BNP.
BNP, the new Islamist party, right, who fought election against the Awami League. I think it is BNP, right? I don't know.
Yeah, most
So all these
most
parties
prob-
that they have created, yeah, they see Razakars in their head. They are the Ashraf, so they are bound to. They are destined to rule countries, right? They are not destined to fight for a country. They are not destined to go to army. They are or be a foot soldier, right? They are destined to lead, be like army commander or like leader. So these Razakars, they started to become like basically become Islamic, either Islamic leader. Many of them went to army, still there, and many of them started new parties to fight for elections. and quote unquote they got assimilated in the new Islamized Bangladesh.
Yeah, so the BNP represented the feudal elite or the ashrafs, as we know.
Right, like the so-called Muslim zamindars, as we said them. Who are they? They are basically these Razakars and all these people.
Yeah, so next question is Bijeet, about Ramana Kalipari massacre.
Ramana Kaliwadi. I mean, see, a lot of things happened. I mean, the Kaliwadi was also attacked, and a lot of people were killed there. Um, but overall, in the scale in which the genocide happened, this was a very small incident, right? I mean, the Ramana Kaliwadi was attacked, I think, around 5th of March, around that time. Uh, but yeah, I mean, a lot of other places of worship of Hindus were also attacked.
Controversial question. The left wing compassion for Muslims is also racist. Their eyes on Gaza and not for the black skinned Muslims of Darfur. What do you think? Are they racist while trying to raise awareness about Gaza and not raising their voice for in Africa, Muslims are being killed? Is
Yeah, I
there
mean,
a
see, left ideology or left ideologies like specifically like Marxism. I was writing about it actually today, and I can discuss it. I mean, see, the left wing is by default racist because they are very much Abrahamic. They need to otherize at least a faction of people in the society. Like, for example, when left wing guys are cursing Brahmins, right? I mean, they are fighting for so-called minority right in India, and Brahmins who are also minority in India. If you really try to factionize the Hindu population, I mean, Brahmins are minority. I mean, we are all Hindu, but from the perspective of caste, Brahmins are minority. But then they are cursing genocidal slogans against the Brahmins. Um, but then they are not racist, right? uh, see, the new manifestation of Marxism, for example, right, among the left wing. I mean, Congress is also ultra left wing nowadays. They are very Islamic. Priyanka Gandhi is having this new sort of bag with Palestine slogans, right? I mean, um, a state which openly talks about complete annihilation of the Jewish population, right? um, Being promoted by a leader of opposition from Indian Parliament. It's a shame, actually. But anyway, I was thinking that the communism, for example, they started this new adventure which is going to prove very fatal for them. So communism, if you understand from the perspective of Marx, he discussed it from the perspective of economics, right? The whole division of humanity into bourgeois and proletariat, it was based on this economic basis, right? And this was basically introduced to capture the state of a nation, right? um, but the idea of a nation, the domain of a nation is much more broader than the domain of state, so to say. So once sort of Marxism sort of capture a state, they start their new venture of capturing the whole nation, right? The capturing the consciousness of a nation. The nation is too broad. And other than, let's say, the state, which has like defense or like economics, the nation has its own culture. So the moment they start to spread or sort of subvert their sort of economic Marxist doctrine to sort of broaden it to cultural Marxism, and to in the process they create these whole cultural sort of proletariats, right? Now here, in this new broadened definition of cultural Marxism, the guys who are sitting at the top, having the power, right, that they captured within the state, they are the new. No matter how much they claim that they represent the mass, they are not. They are the new bourgeois. They are the cultural bourgeois, right? And the nation that they trying to capture, that nation has these cultural proletariats, right? So it is a new venture that sort of the Marxists are trying to sort of implement. but in the whole process it is going to backfire, because any day the cultural proletariats are much stronger. They have a much stronger sense of community than the economic proletariats. I mean, the sort of harmony or the sort of unity that Marx envisioned between two poor people, right? And poor people are not necessarily connected together, right? कि मैं भी poor हूँ तू भी poor है, no, it does not connect that way. But two poor people can get connected through their culture, and it is precisely this thing that the communists, the Marxists are trying to attack, because it is necessary to subvert the nation, right? They have the power in the state. Now they have to have the command over the nation, and now they have to fight this bigger sort of enemy, which is the cultural proletariats, which are the poor people, having business on the street but listening to Kali Mata's bhajana, right? Or some chanting Jai Sri Ram. So it is this daring sort of project that the leftists have sort of dared to venture into, but but actually it is going to help us to sort of consolidate the right wing even more. That's my explanation to it.
Yeah. Okay. So now, a very important question. What was the tendency among the intellectual class in India during 1971 massacre? Because given like they did not think Hindus were as per citizens as other faiths, the
Right, right.
communist.
I mean, there also the response was much more intense from the non-Bengali side than from the Calcutta side. So all these little planning and everything was hatched and implemented, and the epicenter of it was Calcutta. But it was not that the Calcutta was actually having a huge sort of protest and everything, and people decided ki we have to get admitted to army and fight the battle for the Bengali Hindus. No, it did not happen that way. Um, and obviously, Bengal has maintained a very feudalistic structure since 1947, where the center of this feudalism is Calcutta. So I don't think so all these eyes. So the battle, there was a huge battle of intelligence that was going on around that time in Calcutta. In fact, the Calcutta Muslims. So we have records that the Calcutta Muslims stood for the Pakistan. So they created chaos on the street again during 1971 to assist the Pakistan. But the record of Hindus coming to street, gathering street power to sort of counter them, it is not that much. There is not much record about it.
Interesting question. I did not know about it. Could you please tell us about how General Sagat Singh ji was responsible for making the Pakistani surrender at Dhaka? Like,
No, I don't know about this much specific incident actually, but I will learn about it.
yeah,
Um, right, right, right.
okay. Okay, we have, I think, two questions max. Although, because to create a pseudo nation, leftists created this false narrative of Bengali language and culture narrative, right? Even though this was totally opposite to the majority's faith.
Although, because to create this pseudo nation, leftists
Uh,
create this false
yeah,
narrative.
yeah. So
Mhm.
he's talking about
Is it a
correct.
Bangla Pokho thing?
Kind of. So what the question means actually, let me. I think I understand what he's asking. He's asking that the state, the character of East Pakistan did not change when it became Bangladesh. It remained as it is. But during the 71 war, it was a kind of a propaganda where Bengali culture and language was portrayed as the reason for having this struggle, which was actually
Right,
not.
right,
It was a different kind of thing.
right.
So that's what he's asking. That because correct, if you see the character of the East Pakistan in terms of society, in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of military, there is no change as such. Even till today, we see the same thing happening. So
Right.
the pretext of pretext of this Bangladesh creation was cultural identity of Bengali language and Bengali culture. But in
Right.
actuality, it was something else.
See, the let me tell you why. So I have been constantly talking about the double game of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, right? Now you think as so you put your what feet on the shoes of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and you think that way. If you're Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, you can play it this way. One way is कि Bangladesh is an independent nation, right? And and yeah, so this is independent from what India because it is a Islamic nation, right? Fine, but then he wanted to become the prime minister, right? For that and to win the election, so that the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto doesn't come from West Pakistan and win the elections in Bangladesh in East Pakistan in December 1970, he had to sort of play this game of language, right? So the only asymmetry in narrative between West and East Pakistan was in terms of language only. And in order to usurp power, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had to use that narrative, the only asymmetric narrative that was there, which is the narrative of the language.
Okay, so we'll take the last question for the day. We have a lot of questions, so we'll keep those questions coming. We'll keep it take the questions in our next stream as well. Don't worry about your questions. So this is very important question. So can you explain why in 1971 displaced people who came to India, West Bengal, turned communist? Have they not remembered why their parents went through? So this question is answered by many people in our stream as well. But I would like to hear your answer, and then I will have my own little bit of anecdotes to share.
Right, right. So there are a few reasons. One is the Stockholm syndrome, which is that ki you sort of grow some amount of sympathy if your potential killer spares you, right? Instead of killing you, if a criminal leave you after a few beating and slapping, you will feel some sort of connection towards that criminal. So that is the Stockholm syndrome. The second point is the narrative of this Bengali language, um, because so much poetry is written right about Bangla Bhasha and we had this Feni Nodi, and by the Feni River we had such a nice village to create that sort of there is a word for it. It's called Sodad, I guess. Saudad. It's a Portuguese word, or Solidad, I guess. Solidad. Anyway, so it's like something that you are cherishing, and you want to realize, you want to sort of get implement, you want to sort of come bring it back to your life, but it is never going to happen. Solidad, it's called, I guess. Okay, so it's that form of solidad that you sort of cherish, right? Is that is not going to happen, but it is because of that impossibility of that incident you romanticize it. Okay. Third point is obviously the communism, because the communist knew that there is a very consolidated vote bank, and in order to sort of address and appease that Muslim vote bank, they framed the communism in India in such a way that it becomes the Hindu Birodhi, it becomes anti-Hindu. And once they started their literature and their legacy being anti-Hindu, they could not sort of reverse it. Okay, so the most they could become was sort of quote unquote secular with occasional Muslim appeasement. And it is because of this nature that they did not ever criticize the whatever going on in Bangladesh. And you know that when Buddhadev Bhattacharya, along with many things that happened around Nandigram and all those fight that Mamta gave, one important thing that happened was Buddhadev Bhattacharya actually started to attack this extremist attitude of the so-called minority. He actively started to talk about the madrasas getting engaged in illegal activities in the West Bengal. And the moment he started to talk about it, right, the whole Muslim vote bank kind of sort of slipped away from the Communist Party of India. So that's one reason, communism. Then the next reason is obviously because the intellectuals in Calcutta, they have a bigger market in Bangladesh, right? Who read their stories, their whatever bullshit that they write. It is to appease them. They do not go openly criticizing the Islamism. So because of these intellectual, so-called intellectual or pseudo-intellectual in Calcutta, the narrative gets pretty much loses its teeth, right? If there is no intellectual who can dare to talk about the rampant Islamic jihad and anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh, how would the Bengali know about the atrocities that happened in Bangladesh or the atrocities which are going on even now, right? So this is the economic part of the whole argument. And I can give you a slew of such argument. I mean, it's a very complicated uh, place of politics, Bengal. So, so this is what it is.
Yeah, okay. So I have 2 points which I have found during studies and talking to you and other people. One thing which actually Bojhaledi mentioned here, which is very important, is that the Hindu leadership which was there, a lot of them were actually eliminated, and people who actually came to West Bengal, India, were basically like middle class, well of intellectuals. Okay, like who could
Right.
see, as you mentioned, correct? People you need to pay the money to the Pakistani soldier and get your life spared. So people who had little bit of money and they were middle class and had some resources, so they paid the money and they came to India. And like from 50s onwards, the educated were by default communists
Right.
as such, correct? So that secular education was there from 50s onwards, including even in 1960s. Pakistan was much more secular than what we see today.
Right.
Pakistan means West Pakistan and East Pakistan. So I
Right.
have one theory is that how they, all people who came where they were spared their life, they seen atrocities done to them, and they came here and became communist, was that they were already communist by education. They just paid the money and came back here and started believing the same thing again. Because once your brain is washed, it's very difficult to revert.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that
I
is
mean, see, Indian state never talk about Islamic Jihad. That's the whole point. If you don't give it a word, how would people sort of describe it? I can tell you, यहाँ वो दंगा हुआ, यहाँ ये लोग मारे गए. किस लिए मारे गए? It is only the responsibility of the state to give it, to coin a phrase, to coin a word through judiciary, through the netas, through parliament. You don't give it a word that it was a jihadi genocide. It is very difficult for a poor farmer to sort of put it that easily.
yeah, obviously. And last point before we finish this stream, that that is that as you mentioned this Stockholm syndrome. Right? So in our previous stream with Kinshukda, he had mentioned that there is a kind of a silent violence goes on with Hindus in Bangladesh. Okay. And people who like came to India from Bangladesh, they knew that the violence is nature is Islamic. It is
Huh.
it is there, correct? Still, those people came here and they did not utter a word that why they were driven out of their homes.
Right.
It's very very interesting that 1 crore people came here. Don't know about middle class, whatever class they were there. They exactly knew why they had to flee
Right.
because of Razakars. And when they came here, they did not tell exactly why they were coming here and why did not they go back and they
Right.
became communists. So it's a very dichotomy and bit of a mystery. So from
Right.
my perspective, Like they were already brainwashed into thinking that okay, like my identity is a human being. That's it. Nor I am Muslim, nor a Hindu, nor anything else. My only identity is I am a human being only. So that is my understanding kind of thing. That what happened really.
Yeah, I mean,
So
see, the point is the other side is actually doing it as per the scripture, as it is written, as per the, documents, history, and they are obeying it even while slicing the skin, or all those atrocities are as per the scripture. And Hindus don't know what is there in the other side and in their scriptures. So they are thinking ki bhai, this is being done at a individual level and this is some individual rage. No, it is very designated. It is in the literature. Okay, and see, that's the point. I mean, for the 1,000 years, Hindus did not care to study Islam and Islamic doctrine and Islamic literature, hadiths. If you read, it is categorically written. You know how to do it with the mushriks. Okay, you chop the hand from one side, leg from the other, and it is exactly done that way. For a munafiq who is trying to spread chaos, okay, who is in the language of Islam, who is spreading ilhad, you punish him that way only. Now, you see a lot of incident happen where exactly that pattern is maintained while chopping off head and hand and leg. It is scriptural. You have to quote the hadith to describe it. And Indian state should have the courage to describe it ki bhai, this is coming from a literature. Like if you say ki Mein Kampf is wrong for dehumanizing the Jews, right? Why is not these literatures are being taught in the madrasas? Is I mean someone need to. So I talked to Priyank Kanungo, right? So Priyank Kanungo is actually this. He's the chairman of the National Commission of the Child Protection and Rights, NCPCR, I think it is called, right? Um, and he reports to Narendra Modi, and I raised it to him, right? Ki, like these are scripturals. Why don't you talk about it? He said ki, so what he implied actually, did not say it explicitly, ki they are trying to address it ki, children are being taught wrong thing and which are in violation of the children's rights. Children are being taught about sort of prohibited sexual practices, like anal sex and all these things that are written in those scriptures. That's why we are trying to address it that way. Now, okay, so children right is one thing. I mean, you are trying to attack that way, but it is not going to wake up the mature people, the youth, the guys who are in their 20s, who doesn't read an iota of Islamic scripture and who doesn't care to read anything else. Okay, it is the responsibility of the state to include in the syllabus of college those dehumanizing scriptures. Once you just put the scripture, you don't need any explanation. It will just be there in those pages. Okay, there will be maybe one question in the semester about these kind of things in the humanity social studies, and then you see the change. The whole narrative will be changed within 5 years. But Indian state will have to dare to do it, and if they don't do it, this sort of genocide will repeat again and again, because genocide is cyclic. Okay, I mean, now Bangladeshi genocide is pretty much whitewashed. No one talks about it. So after 50 years we are at the same place where Bangladeshi Hindus are being genocided again. Who is going to sort of now raise their voice? No one is raising any voice in the parliament. It was Akbaruddin Owaisi who raised his voice in parliament to ask about the plight of Hindus in Bangladesh. Why did he do it? So that no one else sort of raise this question and ask for an exhaustive discussion. So it was an effective whitewash. And you see the like mum num sort of mumming response of our laser-eyed Jaishankar, right? That laser-eyed our foreign minister. I mean, this is see, if the Indian state, if this party who is in power is not going to talk about it, who else is going to talk about it? But then there is a favor that these ruling parties are getting because secularism is a black hole of Indian politics. Why? Because once, let's say, 90, 100 Hindus get killed in Bangladesh, they'll get their pictures, the bloodied picture with the numbers, 90 people killed, and they will raise it during the election to scare the Hindus, to get votes. So it is this genocide in a very subverted, weird way is working um, for BJP. And this is the most unfortunate thing. Why this is happening? Because Indian state is secular. Indian judiciary is secular. Indian judiciary does not take any kind of plea or action to discuss these hadiths. It is unfortunate in a way.
Bijita, I would like to disagree with you 100%. Indian state is not secular. Okay, in any way, whether the judiciary, whether the state, they are not secular because you will not have laws which prevents a Hindu from studying Vedas and Gita in school, and you have laws where the government incentivizes go and read other religion scriptures.
Right.
How it's
I
secularism?
beg your pardon. Indian constitution is secular. Okay. I mean, there are a few
No,
dharas,
not
but
even, not even that.
no,
295.
no.
It
No,
is
the
not.
point is there should be minority rights, and minority rights are included to keep the constitution in consonance with the United Nations Charter. So you have to keep the minority rights from like the Article
I
25,
have
30.
no quarrel.
But
I
it does
have
not
no
mean
quarrel.
that you have to give disproportionate right.
No, no, no.
That's what I'm
You
saying. So
have
I agree with you, but I want to put a little sort of little and I don't know, little sort of subtext to it. But I
see.
agree with
I
you.
I understand. See, I have no problem giving every right to every people living in India. The only problem is that you are giving a right to minority to do whatever they want, their personal laws, everything. I have no problem. Go and do it. Why you are preventing the majority from doing the same thing? How it is
Right.
secularism?
Right.
So I am saying that even the Indian constitution is not secular because it is giving a right to a minority to go and have your own laws, and in other way you are telling the majority you cannot teach your Gita in schools. You
Right.
cannot have your own laws.
Yeah.
So how it is
That's
secular? It is
unfortunate.
not secular. The
Right.
Indian
And then
constitution and state
this
both
is
are
cool,
not
right?
secular.
Right. Right. Indian state is not secular. I mean, constitution is secular with minority rights, which are in as per the United Nations Charter. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you that Indian state is not secular. Indian constitution is almost secular. I mean,
Yeah.
it is as secular as any constitution can be. It's a very good constitution. But yeah, I mean, for example, if you go to the old temples, right, most of the temple lands are sort of already captured. But if you go to Kochi and all these places in the midst, or any town, for example, like any if you consider any town in India, you will see all those like collegiate schools and missionaries and churches. They have made nice like the boundary, right, so that no one can intrude into their premise. But Indian temple cannot have that kind of boundary, right? Indian temple would not get any funding. Indian temple would not get any nourishment. And I mean, this is the reality of Indian state.
We'll finish the stream today with the last. Only Indian Hindus have the responsibility for being the secular Indian state in minority
Right.
opposing. Okay, so I'll finish with one thing. Bijita, are Hindus of subcontinent specifically have
Uh-huh.
buried their head in the sand and not looking at the enemy? For 1,000 years, you mentioned that we have not studied the scriptures of other faith. For 1,000 years,
I
it is
mean, see,
happening.
Hindus are waking up. Hindu have their own way of life,
Hmm?
and we Hindus will have to keep the violence in check. Hindus cannot sort of promote or propagate unchecked amount of violence or unchecked quality of violence because see, India is a very diverse nation, and we have to play it very smart. Um, But I mean, Hindus are waking up. Hindus were always awake. I mean, maybe in the last 75 years, because of because the Indian state disowned Hindus, and that whole sort of Nehruvian attitude to Hindus has led to this much this harrowing condition of the Hindus and Hindu places and Hindu education, Hindu institutions. But I think as long as, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Hindus are waking up, and I think the future is bright. I mean, we can talk openly about this genocide right now, which tells you a lot, right? Had it been 10 years ago, we could not even write a single line about. Forget about Islam. I wrote about communism in 2010, 2011. I was in Delhi, and my family got threatened in Bengal. So you understand how much we have come from there, right?
Maybe we have hit the wall. There is no
Yeah,
pushing.
yeah, we are hitting the right places.
Got it. So anyway, it doesn't really. I don't really care about. Even you don't care about. Okay, we'll see what happens. So thank you,
No, no,
Bijit.
we care about. We do care about.
No, no.
I
I
care
mean, I
about.
don't. No, no. I care about mean in a way. Even you and I, we don't really care about what other people are saying in a way where other people are. The fear is gone.
Huh? The
So the
fear is
kind of
gone. The see again. Hindus, when I deny it that Hindus were afraid. Hindus were ignorant. Hindus didn't know what is going on. Hindus are not a very coward creed. And I do believe it. I don't say it for the sake of narrative, creating a narrative. No, Hindus are not coward. If you go to any, let's say, Western nations, you will see nice, mild people, right? I see Hindus as a like even a brave race than any day than the British. Okay, it's just that British had guns at that time, most like a more advanced weapon, and that was a probably the biggest reason they could colonize us. But Hindus, in spite of these 1,000 years of hurdles, are still a very brave race.
got it. So we have to finish the conversation today. Thank you, Bijit, for coming. So
Thank
we
you.
will discuss something else in our coming up live stream.
Sure.
And also one more update. So this book is there on the screen. Please go ahead, buy the book. And we are going to launch a dedicated Bangla podcast with Bijeet in our Bangla channel. So do watch out for us. So we will discuss a lot of other things apart from his book. So that would be very interesting to do and listen to.
Sure.
So thank you, Bijeet for coming.
Thank you.
Jai Shri Ram,
Thanks a lot.
Bande Mataram.
Jai Shri Ram. Vande Mataram. Bye.